Hidden Springs Ranch, located in central North Carolina, is committed to registered Texas Longhorns. From our high-end breeding stock down to our delicious Longhorn beef sticks, check us out at hslonghorns.com or on Instagram at Hidden Springs Ranch. Hidden Springs Ranch, where they're bred to turn heads.
From the Pasture by Hired Hand is presented by R3 Hilltop Ranch. Located in Chilton, Texas, R3 Hilltop Ranch has been breeding registered Texas Longhorns since 2006. What began as 3 heifers has grown into our current herd, which you can explore on our website at r3hilltop.com. We're passionate about loud colors, longhorns, and docile temperaments, but it's the easy-keeping, low-maintenance traits of Texas Longhorns that initially attracted us and continue to drive our herd growth. In addition to livestock, we proudly offer certified Longhorn beef products. Visit r3hilltop.com/beef to learn more. Thank you for listening and enjoy exploring our ranch online at r3hilltop.com.
Hi, I'm Molly.
And I'm Jamie, and this is our From the Pasture with Hired Hand podcast. As the owners of Hired Hand website software, we've been developing websites and creating internet marketing strategies for livestock breeders for the past 10 years.
The majority of our customers are involved in the breeding of registered animals, such as Texas Longhorns, Highland cattle, horses, and white-tailed deer, where the pedigrees are very important. The From the Pasture with Hired Hand podcast examines many of the differences in raising pedigreed livestock for maximum profit. Join us and learn what we're covering today.
Today's podcast is part 2 in a 2-part series. Previously, we went over some of the most viewed and most promoted cows across Hired Hand websites. And today, I'm joined with Ryan Culpepper and Chase Vasut, and we're going to be going over some website statistics for the bulls. So we're going to be going over some of the bulls with the most offspring born year to date and in their lifetime, as well as the most viewed and promoted bulls. And then we're going to go over a few bulls sorted by public tip-to-tip measurements. So thank you both so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having us.
Happy to be here.
All right. So first, we're going to go over the bulls born with the most offspring year to date. So just a reminder to everyone listening, this progeny count and this list that we're going to go over, this is just across all Hired Hand websites. So there might be bulls out there who, with the various registries or just, they just have more offspring than what we're talking about. But we're only going over the data that's covered across our website. So just keep that in mind. So I'm going to go over the honorable mention bulls here, and we had quite a few ties in the honorable mention section. So starting with a tie for the number of progeny being at 27 is SR Vaquero Charlie 912, owned by Strudoff Ranch, and Tango Master, owned by Trail of Faith Ranch. Coming in with 28 progeny is WS Hydro, owned by the Hicks Davis Manning Partnership. TS Jammin' Rebel comes in at 29 offspring, and that bull is owned by Terry and Sherry Adcock. And then we have a 3-way tie at the number of 30 offspring, and those 3 bulls are HL Django, owned by Pine Brothers, M7 Manning, and Loomis Partnership. JH Rural Safari Sun, owned by the Freeman Jarnigan and Hesse Partnership, and MC Hangin' Tough, owned by the Murray Siller Partnership. And rounding out our list of honorable mentions with 31 offspring being promoted is Texaco, owned by Siller, Land, and Longhorns. So before we hop into the top 10 here, is there anything that stands out to both of you about any of our honorable mention bulls?
I think it's a heck of a lineup of bulls. What's interesting to me is just the amount of promotion going on through cross sites, even bulls that are, owned with 2 partners. We look at the Godfather of Black and White Rural Safari Sun. He's being promoted on 19 sites. So that's pretty cool to me to see just how big of an impact these bulls are having. And we still have half the year not 2 more years, fall calving to go. So pretty cool.
Yeah, so all this data, that's a great point, Chase. All this data that we pulled was essentially pulled on November 1st. So there are a few months left of the year where some of these bulls could change places or, be promoted on additional sites as well. So all of our data that we're going to be going over is essentially through October 31st of this year. Well, now let's hop into the top 10. So we actually have a 3-way tie for 10th place. So I'll read over all 3 of these, and then I'll just let you guys kind of take it from there with which one you'd like to talk about first. Tied for 10th place with number of progeny. They each have 32 progeny on Hired Hand websites. We have SR Claude 016, owned by Strudhoff Ranch, being promoted on 2 websites. KDK Wildfire, owned by the KDK TL Whitlock Partnership, being promoted on 10 sites. And then BR Crackerjack is the 3rd bull to have 32 offspring. He is being promoted on 14 sites, and he is owned by the Torkelson Loomis Partnership.
I think that's 3 pretty outstanding bulls, with the SR Claude being a little bit of the outlier of the 3, being just on the 2 sites. The Strudhoffs have a great herd down there in the Texas Hill Country, and they do one of the best jobs of keeping their website up to date, almost like a record-keeping service. So you can really see the total picture of what those bulls and cows are producing for them, and he's a really cool up-and-coming young bull for them.
Yeah, and I've always said when I die, I want to come back as a cow at Lynn and Josie's place. The care they take. But if you move on to Wildfire and Crackerjack too, those, as Brian said, these are some of the better known bulls that we've seen at, bull alleys and across the country with some of these programs. But Wildfire's getting it done, and so is Crackerjack. They're putting a lot of size and a lot of horn on their offspring. So it's going to be cool to see what these 32 look like in 2025 and 2026.
So for the 9th place bull, we're going to head over to Oregon to A&S Land and Cattle. That bull's name is A&S Speckled Cowboy. He has 33 offspring listed across Hired Hand websites, and he is being promoted on 2 different sites.
This is one of the coolest colored bulls you'll see out there. The pickers have him there in Oregon, and he's another exciting bull. They've done a great job promoting him, and the color and lateral horn he's producing, you can see why they're using him so heavy, and he's really making him a name for himself on the West Coast.
Yeah, and he's kind of carrying on where his sire did. I think Pacific Cowboy 40 just crossed over 100-inch mark, and like Ryan said, the color, lateral horn that his offspring are showing, it's going to be cool to see when these offspring start traveling across the country through sales and futurities and stuff. But beautiful bull.
Our 8th place bull is Goldmine 1. He has 37 offspring across Hired Hand websites. He's being promoted on 19 different sites, and he is owned by the Pace Hardy Stone Craft Vasut Partnership.
Chase, I'll let you take the lead on this one.
Clearly just the greatest bull on the entire list in the history of ever. He's Goldmine's a great bull, and he's gotten it done for us. We just got into the partnership, and what we like about him is just his ability to throw color on some of these bigger cows. He's got that diluted gene, and you're getting wild brindles, Gruyere coloring, and he's an old guy, but he's just, I think, been pretty consistent throughout his breeding career.
Coming in at 39 offspring being listed across Hired Hand websites, we have Cut and Dried. He's also being promoted on 12 different sites, and he is owned by Diamond B Longhorns.
This is one of the big bad bulls of the breed right here. He is just so impressive when you see him in person. He's knocking on 100. He's well over 2,000 pounds. I think he's probably tipped 2,200 pounds. Loud brindle, got a fantastic pedigree, just really an exciting bull, and his daughters are really starting to make a name for themselves. You're seeing them pop up at futurities and sales with more consistency. Diamond B's done a great job promoting him.
Yeah, and we were actually talking about him last week, Ryan. It's just his daughters and sons, both of them are just flat out getting it done, and that's cool to see in a bull of, especially in the size and horn that he's got. He's really a complete package.
Well, now we're going to move into a few bulls who have their offspring counts in the 40s. So we have PCC Midas Touch coming in with 44 offspring. He's being promoted on 7 different sites, and he's listed as being owned by Stellar Partners.
I think he was the youngest. I'll probably get corrected by him, but I think he was the youngest to hit 100.
He was until I think yesterday. I think a new bull beat him just yesterday, but when he crossed it, you were right.
Yeah. And, again, with the Stellar Partners, this bull's going on some fantastic females. And I know they've got some embryo work going on. So he's, just just turned 4, so he's got a long career ahead of him. It's going to be pretty cool to see what he does.
And beating him out by just one offspring year to date is Hubble's 20 gauge with 45. He's being promoted across 22 different sites, and he is owned by the Metz Noble Hubble Buxton partnership.
This is a bull that I love seeing on here, and it really talks about the longevity of the breed as well as how truly great Hubble's 20 gauge is. He's probably the oldest bull on this list, and to see him still out here, really getting it done and producing top quality offspring at a high volume is really impressive.
You nailed it there, Ryan. I mean, the longevity and talking with Tom and Amy and a few of the partners, they're still having, 40-day calving windows out of this bull. So he's been all across the country his whole life and just flat out getting it done. Very, very fertile.
The next bull on the list is another bull owned by the Stellar Partners. He's being promoted across 11 different websites, comes in with 48 offspring listed across Hired Hand websites, and is named WT Kid Rock.
Longest horn bull in the breed now, right?
Yeah, he is. As of the Horn Showcase, 107 and some change, 3.375.
Really don't have to get much past that to see why he's so popular, but he does bring in a lot of quality and is a pretty exciting young bull to see moving forward.
Yeah, and with his, you got Overkill, Overhead, Overland, all that, just notorious a milking family. So it's going to be cool to see not only what his sons do, but how well his daughters are going to milk. And his bottom side's really just a complete outcross. You got Tough on top, but real cool bull, longest in the world.
Well, now we're into our top 3, and the number of offspring here is going to jump quite a bit by the time we get to number 1. At number 3, we have PCC Cactus Jack. He has 49 progeny listed, being promoted across 8 different websites, and he's owned by the Pace, Gilliland, Manning, Loomis partnership.
It's hard to find a more complete bull. His color, his horn, and then, he won the trailer at the Legends, so in black and white, he's throwing it all. So I think this bull, again, he's probably one of the younger ones on here as well. And he's got a long career ahead of him with what he's been able to produce. And seeing some of the stuff that these guys aren't really showing us offspring wise he's going to have some big daughters and sons out there.
Absolutely. He's one of the more exciting young bulls to come around in a really long time. And it's no, I think he won the Ultimate Bull at the Horn Showcase twice now, or just once.
Yeah, no, you're right. He did it back to back last year.
Back years, and it's no surprise to see him on this list, and I'm sure he's the type of bull that we'll see on a progeny list like this for the next several years at least.
Well, coming in at number 2 is Rebel HR. He has 77 progeny listed. He's being promoted on 32 different sites, which I believe is our highest number of sites for promotion on this list for year to date. And he is owned by the Harold Philip Whitlock partnership.
This is another one of the older bulls on the list. It's just impressive to see, the Harolds have done such a great job for 30 plus years breeding cattle, and to see a bull make this impact and still getting it done at an older age is very impressive.
And the syndication did a lot towards that. Normally we see these younger bulls. I think Casanova was the last kind of big syndication we saw. And, Rebel is just kind of doing his thing at the Heralds, and he's just had a huge resurgence. And he's the sire to the highest selling cow of all time at 700,000. It's hard to deny what he's getting done. And it's pretty cool to see some of these young offspring and heifers and bulls that the partners have.
So topping out the list for bulls with the most offspring born and listed online year to date is BR Jungle Gym with 84. He's being promoted on 14 different sites, and he is listed as being owned by Stellar Partners.
And I think he crossed into the 100-inch club too. I got to be around this bull a lot as a calf, and as he grew up, when Jordan owned him, and then when he was sold. And big, tall, pretty. His mother's Jammin' Jenny, and he's a son of Houdini. So the cool part about him is he is 100 inches, but he's got a strong maternal line, and he's a complete outcross. So I kind of see him as the Stellar Partners using this bull as a really good tool to outcross on their Kid Rock, Rebel genetics, all that. And some of the early offspring out of him is really, really impressive. A big fan of Jungle Gym.
So having completed that list, are there any patterns or trends that you all notice, like in the offspring of these bulls, or maybe something that makes them, more popular, obviously being chosen for, for breeding that high number of offspring?
For the most part, I think you go down that list, and these are all bulls that have the production to back up the the tape measure, the tangible items like their pedigree and confirmation. They've got the pedigree to, or the production to back that up, and you can see why. Some of these are the most highly promoted bulls, and they've proven to themselves or to the industry that they deserve that promotion.
Yeah, and that's a nail on the head, Ryan. I think for so long we got caught up in just what the tape read on these bulls that we were overlooking, breeding characteristics that we didn't necessarily want in our herds and all that. So every one of these bulls, not only are they producing sons and daughters to surpass them, but just all the good characteristics we love in our Longhorns. I think they exemplify that. It's no wonder to me why people are using them, syndicating them, because they're awesome animals, which we're all trying to strive to breed.
Well, now let's move on to the second segment of the podcast, which is bulls with the most offspring born and listed on websites in their lifetime. So these numbers are going to be dramatically higher, and it basically is all of the offspring born lifetime year to date. So we have a few honorable mentions here before we get to the top 10. Coming in with 387 progeny is Phenomenon. He is adminned by Arrowhead Cattle Company. We have Cubbles Rio 77 coming in with 400 offspring, and he is being administered by Strudoff Ranch. Concealed Weapon, being administered by Plain Dirt Farms, comes in with 410 progeny. Hunts Command Respect has 425 progeny listed and is being administered by Arrowhead. And rounding out our list of honorable mentions is CV Cowboy Casanova. He has 444 offspring listed across Hired Hand websites, and his site administrator is Cedar View Ranch. Is there anything you all would like to say about our honorable mention bulls?
I think the thing that stands out to me is if you could have a herd full of daughters of these bulls, you're starting off on about as great of foot as you could. The impact, I think each one of these, you could say, they just produced phenomenal daughters. They all had really good sons too, but the daughters they produced were really phenomenal and helped. They complemented cows and helped the cows they were bred to move forward.
Well, let's go ahead and get into the top 10 here. So the 10th highest bull on the list is Rebel HR. His progeny count across Hired Hand sites is 452. He's being promoted on 32 different sites, and he's adminned by Harrell Ranch.
And like we talked about him earlier, the guy's just getting it done. Out of these 452, I wish I had the stats in front of me of how many of these sons and daughters are the 90, 100-inch mark. He just continues to surprise us all and just flat out gets it done.
The 9th place bull on the list is SR Clout 466. His progeny count is 477. He's being promoted across 5 different sites, and his website administrator is Strudoff Ranch.
This is one of the more complete bulls in the breed. He hit the ground running. He showed up at futurities and the early horn showcases when he was young. Is just a big, stout, brindle bull that really had an imposing figure, and he had the horn to back it up, and he's produced some just phenomenal offspring.
Moving up the list with 512 progeny and being promoted on 16 different sites is Cowboy Catch It Checks, administered by the Carolina Cartel.
Catch It, another one of these bulls that came along. What I always found interesting about him is there were the 3 brothers, Up, Tough, and Catch It. And at any given time, you could say one was producing this better than the other. I think Catch It was very, very consistent, especially in his females. And just as far as just easy flushing cattle, they stay in good shape and milk well. It's no surprise to me. And then the Carolina Cartel's done a great job of showing off what he was able to produce.
The next bull on the list is 50/50 BCB. He has 524 offspring listed across Hired Hand websites, is being promoted on 15 different sites, and is administered by Bull and Longhorns.
This is we actually talked about his mama ring-a-dinger in the cow side, and this is really a testament to her. He's just a flat out great producer. So many daughters, over 100. He's got offspring, grand offspring, great grand offspring. Still winning futurities, leading horn showcase, and his semen is going for thousands of dollars. Such an in demand bull, and he's there because of that production.
Well, the next bull beats him out by only about 20 progeny or so. So he has 542 offspring. He's being promoted on 7 different sites, is adminned by Arrowhead Cattle Company, and is named Sittin' Bull.
Yeah, Sittin' Bull, he kind of changed the direction for the G&G herd when he came along, both in, his brother that we're going to be talking about a little bit later. A lot of fast early horn growth with him, and he kind of came in and they found on these slower growing horns, he could just crank it up and get it done. So I think they did syndicate him. Molly, you'd probably know a little bit more, but Ben, when they had him, did a lot, and so he got to breed a lot of cows, and we're still seeing good Sittin' Bull daughters and granddaughters in herds across the country.
The next bull on the list is Hubbell's 20 gauge. He has 607 progeny listed, is being promoted on 22 different websites, and is administered by HFR Longhorns.
Just like we talked about with Rebel, it's really cool to see a bull that's still around, and still on the all-time. He's on the all-time list, like we see here, but still in the yearly list. Just a testament of how in demand his production is. He's still killing it year in and year out.
Now we're into our top 4. So number 4 is Top Caliber. He has 675 progeny listed. He's being promoted across 10 different sites, and he is adminned by Cliffhanger Genetics.
Top Caliber is another one. He came along. I know when Mountain Creek had him, they were selling daughters for 10, 15, 20, 40,000 left and right. When you start looking at some of these older bulls, like Phenomenon, for example, I think the cool thing about Top Caliber is he still has what he can bring to the table. You can still use him today with the amount of horn he's putting on daughters, a lot of high rolling twists. So it's no surprise to see him up there. He had a real good early start to his career and is, still being utilized today.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's one of those that he kind of had a resurgence the last few years once people saw, some of his slower growing daughters just kept going and still ended up crossing 90 and having some beautiful twists. Really a bull that helped move a lot of cattle and herds forward.
The third highest bull on the list in terms of number of progeny is Cowboy Tough Checks, with 684 offspring listed. He's being promoted on 22 different sites, and he is administered by Bentwood Ranch.
I think we could do a whole podcast series just on what this bull's done for the industry. His mama was the first 90, ended up being one of the 100-inch horn cows. His daddy was a early horn growth leader, and then he jumped out there and crossed 100 and held the title of longest horn bull in the breed for so many years, and then he backs that up with a tremendous amount of production. He's got sons and daughters over 100, and he's probably had as much influence on, or has as much current day influence on herds across the nation as any bull.
Yeah, and like you said, with his production, he was the longest horn bull in the world until this year, and he was passed by one of his grandsons. Yeah, like Ryan, we could do a full day podcast on how much he's brought to the table. Just an awesome, awesome bull.
Number 2 on the list is Drag Iron with 749 progeny. He's being promoted across 11 different websites, and he's administered by Glendenning Farms.
Probably the prettiest bull we'll ever have in our breed. Over 90 inches, 2,000 pounds, a Jamaicism son. And I know Daryl Dickinson utilized him for years, and he went down to Glendenning's to live his best life. And that bull, when he came along, he would put size. He would kill, undesirable color. He was great at turning solid color cows into multicolored. Again, one of those bulls that came along that was a tool to progress our breed forward. And he was just a true gentle giant. For anybody that got to be around him knows what I'm talking about. But he, no surprise, he's up there at number 2.
Absolutely. I echo everything you said. And, I always thought of him as a great fixer. like you mentioned, you have some plain colored cows or adequate horn cows or smaller cows. He'd come in and he'd just add so much to the herd and help move cattle forward. And then just so striking and so beautiful with that wild brindle color and those cool swoop rolling horns. Yeah, he's definitely one of the all-time greats.
Well, the bull coming in with the most offspring beats Drag Iron by about 250, which is quite impressive considering kind of the smaller increments the rest of the list has taken. So we have JP Rio Grande with 1,004 offspring. He's being promoted on 19 different sites, and he's administrated by Lonesome Pines.
We mentioned it before, but talking about moving cattle forward, adding body, adding horn, I think this bull was a game changer for several different reasons. One was his unique ability to improve so many cattle across a variety of traits. But looking back, I always thought he was the bull that he was so good at what he did in producing offspring that, to me, he was the bull that made AI a household common thing across the breed. I thought it was a little more rare for folks to AI. They'd go find him a good bull, but when he came along and he was doing so much good, it made sense for people to figure out a way to AI to him because he was just that good.
Yeah, and that certainly attributes to his number of offspring. But he's the sire to the first 90-inch cow in our breed, and going back anywhere, it's hard not to find him. He was known for what his daughters did, what they produced, and moving on with his sons. I think we wouldn't have a Cowboy Tough. We wouldn't have a lot of these bulls that are on this list without Rio. So to me, in my argument, I think he goes down as probably the greatest bull in our breed, just for what he did. It'd be amazing to see where we were without him.
Now that we've gone over that list, what do you think the long-term impact of these bulls will be on future generations?
Well, I think Chase just hit the nail on the head with what he said about Rio Grande was, it's so hard to find cattle that don't go back to him, and I think we'd be kind of lost without him. But really, bigger picture, you could say that about this list. There's so much quality and so much productivity, and that if we didn't have these bulls, I think we'd be a long way off from where we want to be. And they've done a great job helping us move forward. And I think moving forward, we'll use sons, daughters, grandsons, granddaughters to help keep improving.
Yeah, and where they've sat in the breed and where they move us forward is, a lot of this is a huge thanks to Hired Hand, is just all the data that we have. Like Ryan mentioned, I know up at DCT they're using sons and grandsons of Rio, but you've got thousands of progeny across multiple sites that you can view and see what works. Like with Bill Hudson, they found out that mixing Rio on top of Sitting Bull was the home run. So all the homework done by guys before us is just going to help progress here. You can go back and look and say, Drag Iron and this bull work. They're essentially the foundation of us moving forward. Every one of them.
Looking for top quality Longhorns and a taste of true Texas spirit? Look no further than Cantera Cattle Company. Our passion for Longhorns shines at Old Gringo Ranch, where tradition meets excellence. Visit us online at CanteraCattleCompany.com and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok for the latest updates and ranch life fun. Ready to experience it yourself? Schedule your visit by emailing canteracattle@gmail.com. Remember, God is great, Longhorns are good, and life is crazy.
Hey, if you love From the Pasture with Hired Hand, why not go check out my podcast, The Big Iron Podcast with Andrew Shigori, where we dive into the world of registered Texas Longhorns and what it means to be an agriculture entrepreneur in the modern world, with a little Southern flair, of course. Find The Big Iron Podcast wherever you get your podcasts.
Do you sometimes feel like you're the only one who doesn't have it all figured out? Rural life can be isolating, but it doesn't have to be.
Welcome to Ag's Most Okayest Farm Girls, the podcast for women who are craving connection, laughter, solidarity, camaraderie, and just overall encouragement in your everyday life and dreams.
Each week, your hosts, Annalise, that's me, and Courtney will cover topics such as farm life, mom life, making money online, side hustles, hobbies, sharing on social media, jobs off the farm, and so much more.
Us rural gals need to stick together, so saddle up for some fun, real, and unsolicited advice and stories from our everyday farm lives.
Grab a drink, we're Ag's Most Okayest Farm Girls, and we're here to help. Listen wherever you find podcasts.
Love what you're hearing? Be sure to check out our Pickup Truck Confessions. It's a video series where we hop in the truck or rental car and interview a variety of breeders about what drives their passion for their livestock, how they got started in the breed of their choice, marketing tips, and more. And now, back to the podcast.
Well, the next section of data that we're going to review is the most promoted bulls of the year. And so how this works is basically the number of sites that these bulls are being promoted on. And so we do have quite a few ties here. Regarding the honorable mentions, I would encourage everyone to go check out our blog post and our social media to see that full list, as there is quite a few. And I'm not going to read through those now just to save time here, but definitely go check it out. Some of them we've discussed, and there's a few on there that we haven't discussed yet. There are also quite a few ties in our top 10 list here. So I'll kind of go through and group them. And some of them we've already talked about. So maybe if you, Ryan and Chase, want to maybe touch on a few that we haven't, we can kind of go from there.
Perfect. Sure.
All right. We have a 3-way tie for bulls being promoted across 14 different websites. And so the 3-way tie is between BR Jungle Gym, Drag Iron, and Pacific Cowboy 40.
We've touched on Jungle Gym and Drag Iron. Pacific Cowboy, like I think Chase mentioned him earlier, he just crossed over 100. All three still very high demand bulls and a lot of promotion behind them.
Well, we also have a 3-way tie for these bulls being promoted on 15 different websites, and that is Delta Lucky Ace, WS Hydro, and Cut and Dried.
Delta Lucky Ace, he's a new one to the list. Just big brindle owned by Culpepper down there. His daughters have been doing really well in futurities, and he's kind of one of those bulls as a tool to help progress. And then Hydro, I think we touched on him a little bit, but one of the coolest colored bulls, and he's certainly passing that off to his offspring.
Well, another 3-way tie for bulls being promoted across 16 different websites, and that tie is between Rowdy HR, 50/50 BCB, and WS Jamaicism.
Kind of getting into some older bulls here, and that makes sense. They've been around for so long, and they've been so heavily promoted for good reason. Rowdy, he's a 2-time Ultimate Bull, just produces some fantastic daughters that are they just kill it in the futurity and the sale. And Jamaicism, I think he's kind of one of those bulls that I think he'll go down as one of the more underrated bulls in the breed's history. Just produced some really fantastic daughters, and you see him coming around a lot in some bulls, and he's the daddy of Drag Iron.
Well, there's only 2 animals tied here for being promoted on 17 different websites, and that's CV Cowboy Casanova and Concealed Weapon.
Yep, and we touched base on Casanova and how well his syndication went. Ultimately sold for $100,000. The next is Concealed Weapon. Again, we wouldn't have a 20 gauge without Concealed Weapon. What he did for Jimmy Jones herd, what he's done, all across the country. That bull's definitely going to go up there as one of the all-time greats as well.
We have a 2-way tie for the bulls being promoted across 20 different sites, and that tie is between Cowboy Catch-It Checks and JH Rural Safari Sun.
Catch-It's gonna, he's up there, right there with Tough, his brother, as far as being a prolific producer. Rural Safari Sun, he was one of the first black and white bulls to really step out and be a complete package. And he's over 90. He's the daddy of the first over 90 black and white. 2 really great producers there.
And then, Molly, I think it might be worth mentioning, too, on when you're talking about total number of sites promoting, there's not, 20 people that own Rural Safari Sun. These bulls have made their impact enough to where these sites want to promote as, hey, we have these genetics in our herd. Again, they're not necessarily owned by who's promoting them. It just shows that what they've done is noteworthy to a lot of breeders to have on their site and promote.
Absolutely.
Exactly. So you've all probably been across some websites who have like a reference sires page or maybe an AI sires page or, that sort of stuff. And that's where these statistics are coming in is the bulls are active and being promoted on those sites. They're not just showing up in the pedigree or the progeny or that sort of stuff. All right. Well, we only have 1 bull being promoted on 23 sites, and that's Goldmine.
Beautiful. I love him. We've already been over him. Great bull.
He really has done a great job of I always thought he did a great job of getting people excited about using him with that wild color, but then he backed it up with just tremendous bodies and a whole pile of horn and really complete animals.
Well, this next bull, I mean, my memory's bad, but I don't think we've talked about him yet. So being promoted on 25 different websites, we have MC Hangin' Tough.
Just one of the more exciting young bulls in the breed. He jumped out there and ran up to 100 real fast. I think he did a good job of being a step forward from Cowboy Tough, and then we're seeing his offspring. I've had the pleasure of being at Jimmy Jones' place and Terry King's and seeing what they've done. He's done some exciting stuff, and now that the Sillers and Randy Murray have him, they're doing a great job promoting him and getting him out there. And I think he sold the most semen of all time at Horn Showcase last year. As an outstanding number, and I think we're going to see a big impact from him moving forward.
Well, these top 3 bulls that we're about to go over, I think we've already talked about each of them. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'll group them together and then you guys can take it from there. So coming in at 3rd place with a tie is JP Rio Grande and Hubbell's 20 gauge. They are tied for 26 sites being promoted on. We have Cowboy Tough Checks being promoted on 30 sites. And then topping out the list at 35 sites, we have Rebel HR.
I know we've touched on each one of these bulls and the impact they've had on our breed, but it's no surprise to me to see them up there. Even JP Rio Grande, he's been dead for 7 years, I think. So it's still cool to see, the impact he's had. But yeah, every one of these bulls deserve it. They're certainly getting it done.
Well, how do you both think that promotion efforts by the owners or the partnerships, such as marketing campaigns and that sort of stuff, impact a bull's success and visibility?
I think it has a lot to do with it early on, getting the name out there. Like we just talked about with Hangin' Tough, he's a relatively younger bull. Get their name out there, but to stick around and be on the big number of sites, and I think the top 4 are perfect testament, is they've got to back it up. So the promotion has to be there, the advertising to get people to know about the bulls, but then they've got to back it up with their production.
Yeah, and that's nail on the head, Ryan. I mean, and there could be another 100-inch bull out there nobody knows about. So to some extent, you have to get them out there, but the proof is in the pudding. When you start seeing these futurities, heifers winning, sale toppers, people take note of these bulls, and I think. Ryan hit the nail on the head. It's the promotion is huge, but the impact of the bull's success is ultimately going to be in his offspring.
All right, so now let's go over the most viewed bulls according to lifetime number of hits. So for this list, because we've already talked about all of them, I'm just going to go ahead and read through the number of bulls and the hits. So our 5 that did not make the top 10, but that get an honorable mention here are Cowboy Catch It Checks, Rebel HR, JR Grand Slam, Concealed Weapon, and 50/50 BCB. Coming in at number 10 with the most viewed bulls over the lifetime of websites is Sit and Bull with 2,110,245 hits. Cowboy Checks with 2,458,470 hits. Drag Iron with 2,664,180 total views. Hubbell's 20 gauge with 2,773,740 views. CV Cowboy Casanova with 3,123,475 views. Hunts Command Respect with 3,314,252 views. Top Caliber with 3,627,756 views. WS Jamaicasm with 4,088,342 views. Cowboy Tough Checks with 7,438,080 total views. And rounding out the list is our most viewed bull by lifetime number of hits, and that is JP Rio Grande with 8,678,816 total views.
Good Lord.
What an impressive list. And one thing that carried over that from the female side that I see here is there's some older bulls, and the number of hits also tells us that people are doing research and they're finding those really top end bulls. It's not just promotion; it's people getting in there and really studying and using the database and tools that Hired Hand provides to educate themselves and these are some of the best bulls of all time. And you can tell that they're getting there naturally.
Talking about, we know Hired Hand's been around for about 15 years. So if you just look at Rio, right, and divide that number, that's 578,000 views a year. So then you divide, I'm a mathematician today, then you divide that by 365. That's over 15, almost 1,600 views a day on JP Rio Grande. So it's incredibly impressive of what these bulls are doing. And like Ryan said, attribute it to Hired Hand for all the studying that's allowed us to do. Don't fact check me on my math, but I'm pretty sure it's close.
I won't fact check you on math if you won't make fun of how hard it was to read some of those numbers.
Oh, yeah. I did it at the Horn Showcase and all the decimals. I was about to pass out. So I feel your pain.
Well, now let's go over the bulls by total number of views over year to date. So some of these on this list, I'm curious to hear your input on why you think they're on there, or how they got those number of views. But let's start off with the 10th highest. So that bull is Backfired Love LV. He received 45,110 views year to date, and he is administrated by Longhorn Ventures.
It's no surprise to see them there. Fortunately for them, unfortunate for the rest of the breed, they retired this year and had their dispersal, and they built so much around that Backfired Love bull. He's really a wild red and white paint, over 90 at a real young age. Total package bull. It's cool to see him be on here because of how much effort they put into creating such an awesome bull.
Well, the next bull on the list had just about 1,000 or so more views, 46,728, and that is 585 Overwhelming Toro.
Oh, wow.
That's an old bull. Again, it reminds me of the females that we talked about in the other segment. And what we just talked about here is that people are doing some research and going and looking and see how we got to the great animals of today, and organically, using the database of Hired Hand to go find the foundation pieces. And he's one of them. He won the Horn Showcase a bunch, I think in the early 2000s for the Asbills, and got some really cool offspring out there. You find him nowadays more as a grandparent or great-grandparent to some of today's top animals.
Kind of that same thing we talked about in part one of our recording with the cows is, the only real way folks probably ended up, counting as a view or a hit on those animals is really doing that research on those pedigrees. Mm-hmm. Well, the next bull on the list is Archer Texa. He has received 48,681 views year to date, and he is administrated by CR Longhorns.
Yeah, just again, a big, beautiful bull who's been producing. And I think people are finding stuff consistently that they like, and there's always a common denominator. So that they trailing back to him, it's like, I like the twist, I like the body.
Well, the next bull on our list is administrated by Bryant Cattle Company. He's received 55,664 views year to date, and his name is 50 Amp.
That's a great Jimmy Jones bred bull from one of his foundation cows, and that bull's been introduced to Australia, I believe, and the Bryants have done a great job this year of getting out and promoting their herd. And he's got a really cool pedigree. He's a 50-50 son, probably one of the more well-known 50-50 sons out there, or more popular today. Doing a lot of cool stuff here and internationally.
Well, the next bull on the list is one of two bulls administrated by Bolin Longhorns. This bull has 69,951 total views year to date, and his name is All In BCB.
Really, really cool pedigree on him. And, it just goes back to people researching. The Bolins obviously knocked it out of the park at futurities and sales. So I think it's one of those, as they're going down the rabbit hole researching pedigrees, he comes up quite a bit. Beautiful bull.
Next bull on the list, Chase, you might know a little something about. We have AF Gunslinger. He received 70,472 views year to date, and he is administrated by HEP Longhorns.
I love that bull. We actually, got to breed him and raise him. And I help other people promote their cattle. Ryan does the same, so I'm not tooting my horn at all. But I do want to toot Chris and Ryan and Dale and Dale's horn. Gunslinger, I think what this attributes to is DH Hired Hand. He's the grandsire, and just what that bull's been doing, what his mother's been doing. I would highly bet that has a lot to do with it. Unfortunately, Gunslinger's passed away, but it's pretty cool to see that.
The next bull on the list is gonna jog some memories here. I think we have Bail Jumper with 73,986 views.
Wow,
that's a blast from the past, and it reminds me a lot of the conversation we saw in the cows. Seeing some cows from, I think the oldest cow we saw on all the lists was born in 1967, and a lot of 80s. This is a bull that just really took the breed forward from a conformation and beef standpoint. Really a phenomenal bull that produced some really total package animals, a lot of twist for his day and age, but he also added just a ton of growth in size. And when you look at some cows today, you still see him pop up occasionally, pretty close, but really it's one of those bulls that you see a lot that'll come up 3, 4, 5 times in a cow's pedigree way down the line because he was just that influential.
It's amazing too, Ryan. This bull was born in 1983, so he'd be 41 years old if he were alive. That's pretty cool to see him up on that list. He definitely made his mark.
Well, we're into the top 3 here. And between our first and our third place animal, we have a difference of about 100,000 views. So we're about to get into some pretty crazy numbers and maybe have to figure out the marketing strategy behind some of these. But coming in at number 3 is Bandera Checks with 89,166 views year to date.
And we're going to sound like a broken record, but this is a Chase said earlier, that common denominator when people are doing their research. This is the daddy to 50-50, and it's easy to go back and see him. But you're going to get to him another way is going through that Poco Lady line that Loomis has done so many amazing things with. 50-50 is the easy, obvious choice to say, okay, that's how we got there. But I mean, he produced sons, daughters that were so phenomenal. His mama, Lady Great, is one of the most beautiful cows that the breed's ever seen.
And he went both ways. His daughters as well. He's got what is that bull's name? Matt Bourbon has him. The Randolph showed him forever.
Pearl Snap.
Yeah, Pearls. I don't know why I drew a blank, but yeah, again, and he knocked it out of the park. He had a daughter sell for $150,000, and so yeah, that attributes just a testament to what Bandera produced. That he's been dead and gone for a while and still up on the list for this year.
The number 2 bull on the list is 227 TCC Winning Honor. He has just over 100,000 views at 100,208, and he is administrated by J2 Longhorns.
He should be over 100 inches, I think.
Yeah, it's been a few years since he was measured, and he was mid-90s at a young age.
Yeah, and just a big bull, but he's been utilized in a lot of the top programs as well, and big early horn explosion.
All right, and coming in at the top of the list with a much larger difference in number here is 703 RHF Sharpshooter. He has 184,770 views year to date, and he is administrated by Lutt Longhorns.
Yeah, this is another bull that's kind of had a resurgence. He's a top caliber son that we've talked about him so much, and sharpshooter. He was raised by Jim Atwell, and then I know the Crafts had him, but he's another one of those research deals. He's the daddy to Houdini and just some really phenomenal cows that the Atwells and then so many other people raised. He's a daddy to Sniper, so he's got some really fantastic sons out there that helped spread his name, and then his daughters were just as good, and they still are.
Yeah, absolutely agree.
So are there any marketing campaigns or big sale consignments or anything like that occurred this year in 2024 that you guys think maybe led to some of these bulls spiking in number of views?
They definitely had an effect. That's we both get to see a lot of sales. I don't have any off the top of my head, but
I think that's when you start looking at the big picture is where it'll affect these views, because the cattle that, like we've said, when people are doing their research, they go through a sale catalog and say, here's the genetics I like, or I want to do something with, or how would they cross with my program. You really start to see these common denominator top end bulls filter themselves to the top. And then, we talked about that number 10 bull, Backfired Love. He's an example of a direct example of a strong marketing campaign getting something up there real fast.
the podcast did a great job. I think I saw almost a full page in every sale catalog on Backfired Love. Yeah, promotion has certainly a lot to do with it, as well as, like I said, what they're putting on the ground.
Well, when we go ahead and put our blog and our social media marketing out about these end of the year stats, we'll include the top 30 bulls from this list, because there's a lot more on here. I feel like if we had more time, we could talk about today, and some ranches we also haven't mentioned yet, that these bulls are coming from. So I would encourage folks to go look at that whole list. The top 30 list, every single bull on it has at least over 10,500 views year to date, which to itself is a pretty impressive.
That's awesome. I think that just shows also the value of the hired hand sites. Molly didn't ask for these plugs, but I don't think we can't overstate how valuable the database and seeing all these animals linked together is.
Yeah, you hit it on the head. Shameless plug for hired hand is, y'all had a guy on earlier talking about cows, and he's an old timer. I don't care what he says, but you go up to Dale. I don't think I could raise cows without my site. I mean, you go up and Dale's flipping through books. And I mean, reading is tough enough as is, but trying to remember all that without having the accessibility of my phone and flipping that. And Brian and I both read pedigrees, and I think it's helped us a lot having these tools at our disposal. There's been times at a sale I've just flat out forgotten, and I've whipped up my phone on the block and was able to look it up in 5 seconds. I think as we move forward and more people come in, we'll be talking about bulls that are way up in the views year to date.
Well, we have one more category to go over here, and that is bulls sorted by public tip-to-tip measurement. So again, we don't, consider this the Bible or anything. There might be bulls out there with more tip-to-tip, or one of these bulls might have an older measurement, and he might have grown since then. But when we pulled this data at the first day of the month of November, this was how the list played out. I'm going to go ahead and read a few honorable mentions here, and then we'll get into the top 10, if that's okay with you guys.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. So all of our honorable mention bulls here that didn't make the top 10 have over 95 inches tip to tip of horn. So I'm going to try to fly through them here. And I'd encourage you again to go look at our blog and our social to see the exact measurements. We have a tie for 95.375 inches tip to tip between Tough Trash Checks and Magnum Star Force. We have a tie at 95.5 between CWR Ready Edge and RC Tsunami 2. Coming in at 96 inches tip to tip, we have Wheels Up. We have a tie at 96.125 inches tip to tip, and that's between TCC Houdini and CV Casanova's Magnum. Coming in at 96.8125 inches tip to tip is Unscripted BCB. Done Got Double Lucky comes in at 97.5 inches tip to tip. BP Point Spread has a measurement of 97.9375 inches tip to tip. And rounding out our honorable mentions is Jambox with a measurement of 98 inches tip to tip. So all of these top 10 bulls we're going to talk about here are 98.5 inches and above. So are you guys ready to get into those?
Let's go.
All right. We have Warlock HR, administrated by ANS Land and Cattle Company, coming in at 98.5 inches.
I think you'll hear us say this quite a bit throughout the rest of this list, but this is a bull that has the body and the frame and the color and pedigree to back up that horn measurement. Really cool, big frame Parker Brown bull that the Herald's raised and owned with the Pickers out there in Oregon. Really cool bull.
We have a two-way tie for the next measurement. Both of these bulls come in at 99 and a fourth inches tip to tip. We've talked about one of them a little bit, but I don't think this other one we have. So we have Cut and Dried, administrated by Diamond B Cattle, and we have RZ Walkin' Tall.
At RZ, Richard Carroll, he's out in West Texas and just raises some monster horn longhorns. So it's cool to see them, and he's relatively quiet in his promotion. He's kind of a private guy, but that's just attributing to what he's done with his program out there.
Well, the next bull on the list comes in at 99 and a half inches tip to tip, and that is RNL Frederick, administrated by Running N Longhorns.
This is a bull that some folks might not be as familiar with, but he's got just a stacked pedigree. Pacific Cowboy on top, which is the Cowboy up checks, and the Pacific Mermaid, and goes back to Top Caliber on the bottom. Big brindle bull that's really cool, and I think he's one of those bulls that people for years to come will know a lot more about him after start seeing more of his offspring out in the mainstream.
And he's got to be the one then, Ryan, that just passed 100. So is he going to be the youngest to hit 100 as well?
No, the one that crossed 100, they don't have a hired hand site yet. So this is another plug where as soon as they get their hired hand son up and going, they'll be part of the conversation.
This Frederick's a cool bull. We're going to see a lot out of him. And I think he's got the coolest name out of any bull, just big old brindle Fred.
Well, I'm going to group these next three bulls together only because they're administrated all by Whitlock Longhorns, although I believe they're partnership bulls. He's the one that administrates them. And I think we've also talked about all three of them, so it makes it a little bit easier to group them together. But we have BR Jungle Jim, and he measures 100 and a fourth inches tip to tip. We have Pacific Cowboy 40 coming in at 100.3125 inches tip to tip. And PCC Midas Touch coming in at 101 inches tip to tip.
Yep, we've touched on all three of them. Three bulls that are in high demand. That Midas Touch, like we said, he was the youngest at his time and really starting to make a name for himself. Three really cool bulls.
Well, coming in at number 4 on the list is MC Hangin' Tough. He is administrated by New Age Cattle Company, and his public tip-to-tip measurement when we pulled this data was 101.8125 inches tip-to-tip.
One of the new hottest bulls in the breed for sure.
Yep.
Or one of the younger hot bulls in the breed.
I recently recorded a podcast episode with Mary Stahl, and we talked a lot about when that bull was born and how they kind of knew he was going to be something special right from the start. It was a fun story to hear about from a smaller breeder located on the East Coast. So
she's done some really amazing things with a small herd.
And it's amazing some of the stories on these bulls. I mean, you have to ask Cindy Bolin one day why 50/50 got his name. I think that's a pretty crazy story and just funny to see, what could have happened.
Absolutely.
Well, the number 3 bull on the list is Tough Cowboy DC. He's administrated by Bluegrass Longhorns, and he comes in with a public tip-to-tip measurement of 104 inches.
He's one of those rare, I think he's a triple 100. So he's out of Miss Kitty, who's 100, and then Cowboy Tough, who's over 100, and he himself. So beautiful kind of blue roan bull, up in the hills of Tennessee, but that's cool to see.
All right, so we're into the top 2 now. Again, I think we've talked about them both, but we'll give them their credit where credit's due here with the measurements. So we have Cowboy Tough Checks, administrated by Bentwood Ranch, and his public tip-to-tip measurement is 106.75 inches tip-to-tip.
And he held that record for so many years, and quick look, 1, 2, either 3 or 4 of the other bulls on this list are either sons or grandsons of his. So he sure backed up what he carried.
Ryan, did you ever think when we were showing bulls back when we were younger and they had maybe like an arm's width of horn, did you ever think we'd be talking about bulls that had 106, 107 inch tip to tip measurement?
It's amazing to see how far it's come. I never would have thought that. I still talk to some other friends that remember and implemented when the 40-inch tip-to-tip certificate program got created in the 80s. And and they thought that was just the biggest thing ever. And see, we've well past doubled and even almost tripled it on a lot of cattle. It's pretty amazing to see what the breed has done.
Well, the number one bull, according to public tip-to-tip measurements across hired hand websites, is WT Kid Rock, administrated by Whitlock Longhorns, and his most recent tip-to-tip measurement is 107.375 inches.
And
I feel like we just need a big old whistle about that one.
he did it at 6 years old, 6 years and 3 months. I think at, let's see. So what would have been his 6th birthday? He was, we don't even have that. He's 106 before. So he's not done. I honestly think this bull could be the first one to hit the 110 mark with a cool twist, but that's good for him and the Stellar Partners. He's getting it done.
And one thing I wanted to point out here, it kind of reminded me, we talked about MC hanging tough, coming from a smaller herd. The stalls have been around for a long time, do a great job with their program. That WT brand is not something that most people are going to recognize. So I think it's a testament that, these bulls don't all come from large herds, that thoughtful planning has gone into so much of these bulls, and they can really make a name for themselves no matter where they get started.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, before we wrap up here, is there anything you guys would like to discuss regarding the role that, tip-to-tip measurements for bulls specifically play in, the breeding strategies or breeding value of programs?
We touched on it a little earlier. I think, obviously these are Longhorns. That's the breed of cattle. So horn plays a big role into it. But what I've seen over the past, 3-4 years is we've gone beyond horn. We're looking at body. We're looking at, the feet, what they're producing. And, my hat's off to all the breeders and owners of these bulls, is because they've got it all. It's not, I don't see a single animal on here that's just horn. They, to each in their own way, are improving this breed with each offspring they have. So that's what gets me most excited about the future of our breed, is we're able to breed total package 107-inch bulls. And I don't know what it was on the cows, into the 115 mark. Plays a lot, but there's a lot more behind it. It's cool to see the total package.
I'll just echo what Chase said. The tip-to-tip is still so important because of the nature of any registered breed is always looking to improve their numbers, their data, their cattle, whatever data and numbers they're looking at. So constant improvement is always going to happen with any registered cattle breed. And so you've got to be aware of what these numbers are. But there's so much more animal behind the ears. And I think that is growing in emphasis. And like Chase said, there's not a bull on this list that is horn only. They've all got something. And quite a few of them are true herd sire types that you can put on a diverse set of cows and improve a whole set.
Any predictions that you guys have for bulls we'll be talking about at this time next year, whether it be for tip-to-tip or most viewed or most promoted? Any that we didn't talk about that you think will make some of those lists for 2025?
I think there's a few. What surprised me this year, then they're up and coming. Hudson's got a heck of a lineup. You got Heads Up, a few of those Cool Hand Luke, that Just a Cowboy that the Shigodas own, bulls that have really started making a name for themselves this year. And that Just a Cowboy that Shigodas, he's a 90-inch 3-year-old. He could be on this 100-inch list, this time next year with a host of others. Hired Hand. There'll be a lot of bulls, I think, that progress next year.
I agree. I think we're going to see. I think we're kind of in a transition period. We've got so many 100-inch and 95-plus-inch bulls that there's getting more of them every day. So with that, that broadens the genetic package or the genetic opportunity people can utilize at such a high level. I think we're going to see some turnover in the number of especially that number of offspring year to date list. Is we're going to see quite a bit of change over the next 2 or 3 years, and I think that's a positive thing.
Well, I have one trivia question here for you guys that I didn't warn you about beforehand that I'd like to do before we're done here. Chase, just so you know, Ryan won yesterday. So if you don't beat him today, he's going to be declared the champion. So I'll let you guys pick. I'll let you guys pick. We can tie this trivia question back to trailers or football fields. Which do you want to do?
Trailers, like a cattle trailer or a movie trailer?
Like a 28-foot livestock trailer.
Oh, hell. Or a football. Ryan, you pick.
I'm deferring to Chase. You're the newcomer, so you get to pick.
Well, I hauled cattle for a little while. Let's go with the trailers.
All right. Well, you're gonna be happy you already warmed your brain up with a little math today, Chase. So a 28-foot livestock trailer is 336 inches. So remember that, okay?
Okay.
So if you take all of the animals across every single hired hand website, total tip to tip, you're going to add up all the public tip to tip measurements. How many trailers would we have to line up end to end to match that tip to tip total in inches?
Width to 336 inches. Holy hell.
One trailer.
Well, I mean, the top three. Okay, I'm going to say, is this an over-under or is this an exact?
Over-under, because Ryan was closest yesterday. So
there you go, Ryan.
Whoever the closest wins.
I'm going to go ahead and say we would need 3,146 trailers.
All right. What do you got, Ryan?
He said 3,346?
146.
I'm going to say 3,145.
I'll give you that. That's 1,057,056 inches of horn.
All right. Are you ready for the answer?
What did I say?
Yes.
Yeah, let's hear it.
All right. So I think, Chase, you won, I think. So the total would be 6,715 trailers.
Good Lord.
So the total number of tip to tip in hired hand websites is 2,255,984 478 thousandths.
Good
That
Lord.
is a lot of horn.
How many miles is that, Molly?
I did not figure that out. I did figure out football fields in case you wanted to go that route.
Wow. 6,000. Yeah.
Yep. 6,715 trailers end to end.
That segment brought to you by Elite Trailers. In the nature of this is really cool, the analytics y'all built up. And, I know you asked a lot about promotion throughout this, Molly, and I would say get with hired hand, get with your sales. I mean, a lot of people are under the assumption that they can only advertise in a sale catalog if they're selling. I mean, Ryan's working with the Fort Worth Stockyard Sale and Hudson Longhorns. I'm with the Legacy Group. That's the best way to get stuff out. E-blast through hired hands. So if you're not seeing your bull on this list and you want to get up there, I think those are two quick, easy ways. And then obviously through Facebook to get them promoted and get their names out there and bring them to town. Don't leave them at the ranch.
Absolutely. If your bull's not on this list, I'd use that as a challenge to be a little more creative or work a little harder or whatever it is to really put them out there in front of the public. And having a hired hand site is great because it links to all the pedigree, the progeny, and in your print ads and the sale catalogs, just like he said, you put a QR code in there that you just snap a picture and you're right there. Link to it on all the social media, on the e-blasts. It's never been easier to get your animals in front of the general public and other breeders, and I can't say enough about how much of a game changer the integrated websites have been.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you both so much, not only for the kind words, but also for taking time out of your busy schedules to help us put these two podcasts together. We really appreciate it. And I'm thinking we'll get some great feedback from all of the information that you've helped us share today.
Yeah, we're happy to do it. I'm still flabbergasted over 6,000 trailers, but thank you for having me on. And Ryan, it's always fun to get to talk with you.
You too, Chase, and thank you again, Molly. It's been a pleasure to talk cows and pour over this information.